Good morning, Julia.
How are you today?
Very good. Excellent. Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, 3D People, the way we work. I'm excited to have you here.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited and to speak about our topics, 3D printing, and obviously also about ourselves.
And I want to get started actually with a hobby that we have in common, and that hobby is called Budapest. Tell us a little bit about this and about yourself. I'm really curious to know who's Yannick.
Yes, thank you, Julia. Yeah, you brought the topic of Budapest. So, but maybe to start, who is Yannick? I mean, basically, I'm a European. It's because I was born in Switzerland, raised in France, and I'm working now for over 10 years in Germany and now back in Switzerland. And for Budapest, you wrote the topic, and my wife is from Hungary, Budapest. And that's, I guess, something we have in common. We spoke about it. And yes, that means that I'm a true European. I really like the idea of the European Union. I mean, of course, you can always argue about how it has been constructed until now, but the fact that borders are open, that we can easily travel from one country to the others, that we have common money is really, say, making life easier for people who have family spread over different countries.
Yeah, that's true. Although Hungary still has the forint.
Yeah, but they are flexible like the
Yeah.
Swiss are. So
Yeah. And as we were talking before we did this recording, you told me something funny about where you work now and where you used to be as a child. That there's a playground and literally I don't know, like 400 meters from it, there's your office right now, 90 labs. And I was joking that you went from the little sandbox to the bigger sandbox to the bigger sandbox. So maybe you could tell us more about that. I thought that was cute.
yeah, sure. I mean, last year I was taking a pretty big decision to move from my job in corporate to 90 Labs, which is we would define as being a startup. But and that would also mean back to Zurich, where I was born. And indeed, while doing the interview with one of the co-founders, we were walking around outside of the office, and then he was telling, okay, you see, it's nice with a mat, and here there is a nice coffee. And I told him, oh yeah, and basically behind the coffee there is this playground. It's pretty famous. And he said, oh, I didn't even know about it. And then I told him, yes, that's where I spent my 5 first years of my life in this sandbox. but now we are in FDM, so we don't have sands in our printers.
Uh-huh.
But of course, we have another playground with those 3D printers. But I guess that's part of the emotional topics when you take a decision also to change something in your career.
Mm-hmm. Was it easy for you to change? Because I'm asking also because I know that you're doing a lot of things, like you're doing sports, or you're very active, and you also opened a hotel in Marrakesh. So it's like, what? tell us more about that. It sounds super exciting. I don't know anyone who opened a hotel in Marrakesh.
Yeah, I mean, was it easy to change? I mean,
Yeah.
change is always a big topic, isn't it? And we always speak about changing organizations. And of course, now after the few months we experience globally, we see a lot of change or even increased change in an economic world, maybe even in private world. So actually, we are all confronted with change anyhow. So I'm rather a friend of initiating change myself. So that's why I really like to go out of the comfort zone. I mean, that's what we learn in sports when you really go into racing, because you are never in your comfort zone when you are racing. And basically, you try to educate your body when you train to go out of to be able to go out of this comfort zone. And I guess this mindset sticks when you go into business. Entrepreneurship is normally not in your comfort zone either way, because if you would assess it on a paper, you would never do it. I mean, you would never open a hotel in Marrakesh living in Germany, because the risk, if you make a risk assessment, the risk is higher than the reward on the paper. But then if you look at the journey, who you are meeting, with whom you are doing this business, what you learn on the journey, of course you will hit some walls, but that's how you learn. And I guess this kind of philosophy or experience I took also to take the decision after 13 years same company, just move out, maybe just for the fun to take risks, you know.
And what kind of lesson did this bring to you, this journey while opening up a hotel in Marrakesh?
I mean, basically when you open a hotel, everybody tells you, okay, you are an engineer, you have no clue about hotels. And that's really this lesson that don't listen to the people who would never do that themselves either way. So yes, you have all those people you are encountering day by day, even friends or family telling you, okay, that's just a crazy idea. You just have a bit of money and you just invested in one project, like full risk. But that's not how we saw it, because it was just a step by step. We didn't even assess step 2 before doing step 1. So it was also its opportunities. I mean, at that time, it was 2012, first time I went to Morocco. Of course, I had plenty of friends from Morocco being in France. And 2012, I got a fund when I was sponsored for 1 year by the Robert Bosch. And then we did a lot of seminaries with politics, with philosophers, writers, to just get challenged within a small group of 20 young people about topics such as political topics of that time, because it was post-Arabic Spring. And one of the most stable countries after this period was Morocco. So we decided as young European people to go all together to Morocco. And we had the opportunity to meet some ministers, and we were asking about how they cope with this crisis and what are their learnings. And then at that time, of course, I enjoyed nature. So we went through the Atlas, and I met again a friend from the past who was living there. And just chatting, saying, okay, what are the opportunities in a country which is very young by age? And he was in the tourism field either way. So step by step, we came with this project. Let's buy a house, make a small hotel, a boutique hotel. How should be the house? What are the maximum costs we can afford? Where should it be exactly in Marrakesh? And then 2 weeks later, he called. We were at home in Germany. I have the perfect house. We have to sign within a few days. So I just took the next flight, went down, signed, and we started 2 years of construction and paper administrative topics. Yeah, after 2 years, it opened for the opening of the COP21. This or how is it called? It is environmental conference where all countries of the world met. And that was a big date for us.
And that's when you opened?
Yes, we opened. So it was 2016. Correct. 2016 it opened officially at the date where this conference opened, because then it was fully booked from day one. And yeah, I guess that's how the journey started. And then, of course, having a hotel is never boring. At the beginning, we were doing operative stuff remote from internet. So we had, of course, this friend online and on site, but we were doing a lot. And you always have surprises, isn't it, with guests, with administration.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
I also worked in tourism and also studied hotel management in Hungary. So that's in my previous life before I joined additive manufacturing. And I know that really when you work with people in general, you always have surprises that you thought, this is not real, this is happening, and it is, and I think it's fun. This is how we are. We're interesting and fun. Sure. Many times. And I like what you said, that that you like to initiate change yourself. And I think it's very much connected to taking responsibility yourself. And I'm reading this book. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's from Yalom. He's an existential psychotherapist. And I started to read a chapter about freedom. And he's writing that a person can only be free to the extent that he's willing to take on responsibility. And this combination is one of the biggest existential fears that we're facing, because we don't want to take on so much responsibility, but we're yearning for freedom. And unless someone makes the connection with freedom and responsibility, they will be in this loop of, I'm not getting what I want in life, and why not? And until they realize, actually, I have to go and get it. And he also writes that, and I'm curious what you think about it, but he also writes that change happens through taking responsibility again, and that responsibility is creation. And it kind of connects to what you just said, because you created more or less this project in Marrakesh and also throughout your career, the steps in your sports and the things that you're doing. Do you think it is connected to taking responsibility freely, willingly?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the word responsibility is really important, and obviously many people in business, but also in private life, they have this word of risk often in their head, but probably responsibility is a better word to describe it, because why do most of the people not move forward? And I mean, we see a lot of critics out there, but not a lot of people initiating change, taking responsibility. And I guess that's a big topic, I mean, for politicians or for society in general, how to get the people to take more responsibility, to really shape their environment rather than just be there and criticize what happens. So that's a major topic in our societies, because we have the luxury to take responsibility. I mean, that is another point. When you move to other regions where it's still about surviving or being really at the verge of, or at the tipping point always, it's different. We really have the luxury to read, to meet people, because our daily life has been shaped in a way that our working time, of course, you can always argue, are you working 80 hours or 40 hours or whatever, but it's much less than surviving.
Yeah, exactly. But I also like this, you have this expression, you're a risk taker, but actually, you're a responsibility taker, maybe.
I mean, then let's move away the word of risk and takes the word of opportunity, probably, because it's also something. I mean, I was also doing some studies while working, and you always have all these risk assessment metrics and tools, and everywhere you see risk assessment, and actually behind risks there's always potential. I mean, you will never be an explorator without taking risks, but that's how you will discover the nicest things, and you do the best experiences. So I would say I rather see the potential, but I mean, to make it really simple, in sports, you have a start line and an arrival, a finish line, and in between you have a competition, and it's up to you to launch the first attack, or to forward, or to move behind the guy attacking. But at the end, the goal is to be the first over the line. But sometimes the goal is hidden, so you might even be happy if somebody else is winning, because he's part of your team and you made a team effort to make him win. So it's also on the eye, or in your own head. It's one definition, your own values, what you're building up.
So yeah, behind every risk there's opportunity, which leads me to my next question about how did you guys get into additive manufacturing?
Yeah, how did 90 Labs go into additive manufacturing? And interestingly, when I listened to the other podcasts, and the people had really say emotional, personal stories behind that. In this case, it's a bit more scientific from the approach, but afterward comes the emotion. That's we all come from composites. So 90 Labs started with the composite spirit. So really the structural composites. And now the 27 people in the team, they all have a background in this world. And we started with software because composites is very complex. It's anisotropic material, we call. So it's a material with fibers and plastic. You can orientate the fiber as you want, or at least you would like. And that's why we started with the software, to really place fibers like we want based on the loads of the end parts, etc. But once you have this nice digital application on your screen, you want to make it, because we are also engineers by education. We want to feel it, grab it. And we thought about what kind of process would enable to do what we have on the screen. And then it was pretty obvious. 3D printing is the answer. So that's how we moved into this field of 3D printing. Of course, analyzed it, assessed it, finally decided to do our own printer, so developing our own printer. And so that's a rather scientific method to come to the 3D printer. But now we are so enthusiastic because it's really making something real out of the digital file we had,
And how long did it take you to create your own printer?
I mean, the company was founded 2018, and the first solution, which includes printer, but it's much more than a printer, because there's software, there's other hardwares, will come out to market now in, I would say, in the next few months. So let's say it's a 2-year journey. So probably a bit more than a year to develop the whole thing.
And what would you say to the people who are not yet thinking about using composites? What would you tell them about your business or your processes, or what you have to offer?
Yeah, I mean, first, I would never talk anybody into composites. I would talk people to really use what is best for their application. And I guess that's that becomes a challenge when you look at the 3D printing landscape, or the processing landscape in general. Is for an end user who would need a machine to produce a part, how to really select what is best for him and for his business. And that's a really interesting question we are also having every day in our companies. Really, we want to convince. Of course, we know what our technology is enabling. And composites are great in such that you can actually increase functions of a part, because you can really decide how are fibers distributed in the part, so you can cope with, of course, we always speak with lightweight, but you can also speak about thermal elongation, you can control that. You can speak about X-ray transparency when it comes to med tech, and you have this issue with metals not being X-ray transparent. So there's plenty of features, and you have to understand first what is the challenge of the application and which features you want to integrate. I guess this type of flexibility is very complex. And if you add that with the flexibility of 3D printing, which is also a topic of mindset, how to really have this freedom in thinking in new ways to produce in new types of materials, then it's a lot about education at the end. And that's what we see in 3D printing. A lot of people in sales, in business development, and in general, they are part running their business, and the other part is actually being a teacher for potential customers. Because we have to educate, we still have to educate people about what are the possibilities.
Yeah, and I mean, sustainability is a huge topic in additive manufacturing. Luckily, I'm happy about that. What can you say about recyclability of composites?
Yes, that's a good question, Julia, because indeed metals, and I was working in the metal world also part of my career, are well known. We have really nice recycling chains. You can have primary metals and secondary metals. And the composites is a very young product in comparison. I would say all these fiber-loaded composites. And here you have these thermosets and thermoplasts. And in general, thermoplasts are much better from a recycling point of view. Still, it's a complicated material. You are mixing at least one plastic with fibers. You could also mix other materials. That means whenever you recycle, it's really the definition. What do you want to do? You want to separate the materials again. And separating means you need to bring in energy. Of course, you need also to bring energy into metals to melt them. But then, okay, they are liquid. You can add something and you can make something new. And in terms of plastics, I mean, we use thermoplastics because, of course, they are easier to recycle, but it's still not at the level of metals where actually when you buy a car, you don't know, is it made of scrap or is it made of iron ore, which has been taken out of a mine? For plastics or composites, you always have actually new material in really high level applications. We see now some applications hitting the market with recycled material, but you will have to chop the fibers, for example, so you don't have continuous fibers anymore. So all these topics need to be, I would say, step by step implemented. The matter of time, a lot of people are working on it. There's businesses opening, working on that. So it means it gets also interesting from a monetary point of view, which is often the start for scaling.
You mean there are businesses opening who are focusing only on the recycling part of the materials?
Yes, there's businesses, they will buy your scrap material or your used material, make something out of it and sell it again. So they can make money out of it, and that's always a good point when it comes from the labs, because in labs we can do a lot of things with materials, to real business, which is scaling up.
Do you think, in your opinion, do your clients or potential clients, are they interested in being educated on how to recycle the materials?
I mean, depending on the field, there is always this question. Of course, often it starts with performance, because that's when people tend to come to these composite materials. But at the end, there is many industries like automotive where they even have to show that they will recycle it. So of course, you can always argue, is it downcycling or upcycling? Nevertheless, they will confront you with this topic and you need a solution. So yes, there is more and more industries interested in that. And even, I would say, but that comes with the time that many people are personally interested by this topic. And they will always ask, okay, obviously you are promoting with 3D printing that you are very material efficient because you just print what you need, the end part, almost. But what does that mean for the end part after it has been used? Can you recycle it and how?
Yeah. Well, it's really exciting. I will look into the. I didn't know there were companies who were doing that, so that's good new information for me as well. And what about your role at 90 Labs? Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you feel in this role?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, officially, and I say officially because yes, we all have a business card where it's written
a title,
certain positions. This is for me. I'm looking into business development, which makes sense because having quite some experience in the composites field, I also understand the challenges and the opportunities here in this environment. So that's, I would say, my main task. But being in a startup, and I'm working every day actually with my colleagues directly in sales and marketing. I would say that's more the vitrine of the company and trying to tap into growth, of course. But then you're a startup, you have certain goals you want to reach as a group, and then it's really about doing what is necessary to do. So you will also end up building a booth, fair, and all these things where in big corporates you have specific departments, and here you're a bit just on your own. You have this 27 people working on one target, pretty focused, and then it's about supporting each other.
Yeah.
As in, you were asking how do I feel in this role, and actually I really enjoy it, and this kind of freedom. And when we come back to the point of freedom or responsibility, but you can really take decisions quickly without asking too much. On the other side, there is a responsibility behind because there is founders, there is a small team, and you're always at the verge. I mean, you have certain investors in the back who are giving you a lot of trust, and you are working for your passion, basically. You're also working for the investors in a certain way. So it's all these stakeholders all together. You know that it's there, but on the other side, because you work by passion, you do really what you like the best, and you do your best every minute. So not having to cope with maybe with too many interests, what sometimes in corporate it's a bit more than just passion, because it's a well-organized structure and it makes sense, because when you are growing into huge organizations, you need also some guidelines and some rules. Yeah, I really enjoy this more entrepreneur environment, which I experienced actually when opening a hotel or doing other things. But yeah, really mixing the high deep tech topics with sharing it also with a group of people with common passion.
Yeah. And it's really good what you said about trust, because I also think that first of all, having a trusting environment is what is enabling innovation, and I think just clarity in general for the people who work in the teams. I mean, clarity around the boundaries of the organization, the values, the specific roles that people have, and how many roles they have, and how will this change with time. I think all this clarity has the or enables a business to attract people who really are also resonating with that. And I think this is where growing a team, when growing a team, it's so important to first and foremost have the clarity internally about who we are, how we function, what are our values, what's our goal, and then get new people on board who share more or less this goal. And then I think, as I noticed that as companies are growing, this can fade away a bit. But I think if you would have people who are conscious about this, and it usually has to come from leadership, then you can maintain this even if the company is growing bigger. Yeah, you guys are also hiring right now. You're growing the team, right?
Right. Yes. I mean, we are really in growth mode because we are short before hitting the market, so we have clear technical objectives, and obviously, yes, we are growing. And what was really interesting during this confinement time, we actually hired approximately one person per week. So
really,
coming back, yes. So coming back to your topic of values and having a frame, and this is something where the 3 co-founders were really strong, and they have a strong value frame, and they have clear ideas about where they come from, but also where they want to go. And so this challenge to hire people and having them start in a time where you didn't even meet them in person, because we don't hire locally. I mean, we hire just the persons we like, we need most in terms of experience, in terms of personality. So I would say even we have some candidates coming from out of Europe. And then, yes, you do this hiring process over your computer, your laptop, and you have this guy all of a sudden on the Monday in the stand-up, and hi, I'm the new guy, and he starts right away from day one, and it works perfectly because there's a good fit, and he understands. I mean, basically, he went through all these interviews, and he really fits with the values. And then when it fits with the people, and of course they have their experience in terms of education behind, then it's really making a strong team. So now it's fun. Since last week, we are again back to a certain normality. So we meet in the office, of course, with some restrictions. But you see people you work already for 2 months, and you have never seen this person in one-to-one, in physics. So that's pretty cool experience, I guess. I mean, we were a bit afraid. We didn't know what to expect at the beginning because it's kind of a strange situation either way. There is no book for that, but going back to the basics, as you said, having values, having a clear frame, clear targets is certainly helpful. Also in exceptional situations, or even more in exceptional situations.
Exactly. So when there's a crisis, there's always more confrontation happening, and the only way to hold yourself as an organization in time of crisis, in times of confrontation, is to have this solid ground. And this is actually something that we talked about in our webinar, and that was one of my topics. Is I'm really focused on this lane right now. And then the other one was also managing recruitment in times of travel restriction. And I guess then this is something that that your team has done quite successfully at 90 Labs, doing full virtual recruitment process from start to finish, taking the risk. And then from what I hear from this is that if you have clarity on who you are and what you want and where you're heading, then managing recruitment virtually can work out super well.
Yes, I mean, I would definitely confirm, but I mean, I guess in general it makes sense, whatever, if it's virtual or real, but in virtual situations, you will need it even more, because then it's really what creates this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you meet somebody in a room, then you have other emotions than just some frames. But in a virtual way, probably um, that helps to make it clear. Yes, as you said, the word of clarity is really important, I guess, on both sides, because also it's for a candidate, it's pretty strange, and somebody took a decision to leave an organization, obviously, to
Mm-hmm.
join another one, and then all of a sudden there is this situation which is global, and a lot of companies said, okay, we do not hire because we have home office and HR is in home office, so we stop hiring for a while. For us, it's a massive opportunity also, because we need talented people. We are just, I mean, of course, it's another challenge, but we were happy to take it. Really, we are really happy with the results. So with the new colleagues and how the team is growing in a positive way. So basically, we are still on track. We have no delays in all projects we have set beginning of the year. So that's also a confirmation that we did the right things at the right time.
Mm-hmm. And looking forward, what is the next big thing for you guys at 90 Labs?
I mean, I guess entering the market is always a big thing, because now you have all these study cases and maybe some some relationships which are better with some companies, but then it's about real thing. I mean, we want to go into serial production of composites with our machines, so also with our 3D printer, and then you're really competing out there with established companies, established processes, and these first customers we have, they are also putting a lot of trust in our technology, in our knowledge, to make real products. So what they will hopefully put into planes or use to for medical applications, etc. And then it's really this time of verification. Yes, did you really think about everything? Is the business case solid? All this
Mm-hmm.
stuff is really exciting for us to go from modeling and testing on a lab scale to real production situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
That's
then.
for sure. It's gonna
Exciting
be a
time.
steep learning curve again. Oh yes.
Yeah, exciting times for you guys. So our episode is coming to an end, Yannick, and but before that, I wanted to ask if is there any important question that you think I could have asked but I didn't, and you'd like to talk about it?
I mean, maybe a question which is often asked in this current world is this question of balance, isn't it? Balance between work and let's say private life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never a big friend of this work-life balance, because basically, if you always actually mix a little bit of both. But the important point is really, if you take the decision on how you want to mix it, then you don't need to set a clear frame about what is private, what is work, because it's just merging perfectly. I guess now with this confinement, a lot of people had to experience something which maybe only a few of us were lucky to experience, if it's by choice, to
Mm-hmm.
have actually to work at home, but you can also be home at work. So is this kind of, I guess, hybrid model where more and more things are merging because of technology. Basically, if you have a laptop or a phone, you can make a deal wherever you are. So that's I guess something people probably but organizations also have to learn how to cope with. And as usual, it's easier if you take your own choices than if you are forced into a model. And as this freedom, but we come back to freedom, we come back to trust from organizations to the employees. And I guess that's a huge topic to learn for organizations, established and young organizations. And there's certainly not enough education in this field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It was interesting also what we spoke about with Marie Langer, how she was saying how many years she prepared for the role, and that they work with a coach, and that it's so much about getting to know yourself and have clarity about who you are as a person, what's important for you, what kind of people do you want to surround yourself with, what are you creating for the world. It's just on so many levels you can gain awareness, and the more you understand yourself. That was this Goethe quote that the more you know yourself, the more you know the world, the more you know yourself, and the more you know yourself, you know the world, or something like that. Because I think that in this relation, I think Esther Perel, she's this psychotherapist who I really like, she says that we know ourselves through relationships, but then you also have a relationship more or less through yourself, through the eyes of the world. And without having this awareness and managing people, I think it's very, very difficult.
That's a nice conclusion, Julia.
Conclusion, it's very difficult. Yeah. Yannick, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you today. And thank you for sharing your story, the personal one, but also what you guys are doing at 90 Labs. And I wish you all the best, and let's stay in touch.
Sure, let's stay in touch. Enjoy, Julia.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.